Season 2 of the Pat and JT podcast.
Oh man, I'm here at last. The best time, always gonna be the best. Come on!
Exclusively on the Hurrdat Media Network.
Yeah, and here we are, day three three of No Pat. This is No Pat and JT. But it is No Pat and JT with John and Sasha. So John Carroll's in the studio.
It's me.
Finally,
I know.
back.
I know.
Sasha, still with us.
Yes.
Right? She's taking care of all the details. And so is your first time with a John Carroll experience?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, it
it's
is.
true.
Okay.
Yes. We actually tried to kind of get things going again, and then just life and
I know.
all that stuff.
We'll
so
get it going again.
We will.
John Carroll experience started in 2003, 2002. I think it was 2002, but it might have been 2003.
No, it was 2002 because I came in for the very first time right about the time the show was ending.
When we're talking about the show.
Survivor.
Cue
Cue the music. Oh, wait. We didn't prep. Okay. We could do that in post-production.
Right? We'll get that in post, no problem. That was Survivor
4.
4? I always thought it was
Yes.
3. Marquesas.
Yeah, Marquesas.
Okay.
Yep. And season 40 was the last season to air before COVID. And then season 41 and 42 have been delayed until sometime in 2021.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So were they doing, they do 2 a year?
2 a year, and
Okay.
they generally film them back to back. March and June is most of the time they do it. And they've been filming in Fiji for a number of years now, as less viewers and consolidating costs and all that. So it used to be Survivor was going to a new location and you'd learn about that location, but over 20 years now, it's just about the game and the show.
Right.
And so for production-wise, they've got a great deal with Fiji, and so they just do themes versus Survivor Africa or Survivor Amazon.
Can you imagine, though, the money that they spent on locations?
Oh, yeah. But it was really cool, though. When
It was very cool.
They would go to different places. Like we were supposed to go to Jordan, and remember 9/11 happened, and so they had to scramble for a new location, and that's when they did Back to the Beach because Africa was a disaster pathologically because they all got really sick with weird parasites for a very long time after the show.
What kind of releases do y'all have to sign for that?
Oh, basically you can die and
You can
you
kill
can't.
me?
Yeah, like
My family can't sue.
Yeah, nobody can sue, and also they'll send a press release. It's your fault.
On top of
Yes. So not only have they absolved themselves of any liability, you sign a waiver. I think allegedly that you will accept all blame.
This is all my fault.
Yeah. And the way I played, I got, I'm if there's an accident that's going to happen to somebody,
That's for sure.
I'm the guy that it will happen to. I have so many gross, weird, awful accidents that happen.
What is your strangest injury
Of
all time?
I can't do all time because there's just so many bad ones. But the most gruesome one that I just had recently on the farm in the last
My goodness.
I'm going to say about within the last year or so. And I don't know if you can actually see it, but so I was getting ready to go to the truck and I didn't have my keys. So Chad, and I've got this from my dad. I think I actually have them here. I have the infamous wad of keys that weigh probably about 3 pounds that have keys that I have no idea what they belong to anymore.
I have one of those, and I finally took it off my fob for my car, for my vehicle, and I put a little clippy clasp, and so it connects to whatever bag I'm carrying. So the keys are always with me, but not hanging off my ignition.
This is my dad's fault. Like this
Mine were
wad,
like that. And I
this wad of
just
keys.
went through my keys the other day too, and I know what 2 of them are for, and they're for the office that we used to have in your office, and we haven't used in a year and a half.
I mean, maybe I could assign something to most of these, but then I have another spare wad of keys because I don't know what they belong to, and I also too afraid to throw them away for fear I might have to unlock something one day. So Chad went to throw me the wad of keys. So I went to grab, it must have been actually with I can't remember which hand, but I just reached up with my hands to grab them. One of these keys perfectly turned into a javelin and went between my fingers.
That nice little webbing.
And impaled about a half inch through the webbing and was just basically dangling there.
Were you in shock immediately?
Well, first it didn't hurt right then. And then about 3 seconds later, it was like F asterisk apostrophe.
Drop to your knees.
Like all the way down my arm into my elbow. I mean, I was like.
They do say that screaming and using cuss words does relieve the pain.
Oh, there was a lot of screaming and a lot of cuss words. Like, and all I could do really was I just grabbed my wrist, for whatever reason, like squeezing it. Like I basically because it hurt so bad.
You had the blood to stop pumping.
Yeah, and I looked down and there was like fat globules like hanging out of my finger.
Oh my God.
And like things that you're not supposed to see from the outside or like in the hole. So I ended up having to go to urgent care because I can't remember like right away, but then I think like the next day it was infected and swollen. So I ended up having to go to. So that little toss of keys cost like $230.
Yeah, of course, and the nurse waits a day to go in to get it fixed.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And then trying to explain to them how this happened. But in my mind, I'll never forget it. It was like a slow motion watching the keys hurtle through the air. Cause it was like threw them like 20 feet away, 25 feet away, kind of like an underhand softball throw high, and then of course I had to blame him. Like you threw them too high up. It was like
and you threw them
the
too
force
hard.
of gravity.
It's all your fault. Oh my God.
You could have walked over here.
But okay, broken bones lately or anything like that?
No, no broken bones. Okay. But I'd like to show you my newly acquired scar.
Yes, I see that.
On there. It's like a crescent shape.
On his knuckle.
Yeah, right on my knuckle. Okay. And also there's like a nice one over here on my pinky. And one over here on my middle finger.
Were you juggling knives?
Right.
Close, Sasha. Very close. What happened is, so our neighbor, Dave, who like almost single-handedly helped put our farm back together after the flood of 2019, he passed away a few months ago from melanoma. And he's my godfather. And I converted to Catholicism in 2015. And him and Pat, who's my godmother, were my sponsors at Sacred Heart. And so as he was in hospice, his son from Minnesota, Mark, was in town. And part of like how he was dealing with his grief is he's really almost like a master knife sharpener. And he's got all of these fancy tools.
You weren't far off.
You were pretty close, Sasha. Here comes the rest.
And not just the dull ones.
No. So Mark, turn these into like miniature guillotines. Oh my God. Or it's guillotine or guillotine?
I think
guillotine, right? Guillotine.
I hear
right?
more people say guillotine.
No, it sounds weird.
And the reason
like Gilligan.
And it's not like something I expected to hear in 2020.
Yeah.
But you may remember some of the parties, the street parties. They were rolling a guillotine down the street.
Yeah.
And news reporters were calling them guillotines.
No, it's guillotine, right?
It's guillotine.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Guillotine.
I'm not being fancy.
Yeah.
It's guillotine.
Off with their heads.
Yes.
And so he sharpens up all these knives. Well, I didn't realize how incredibly dull, and how much force I must have been using to cut tomatoes and everything else. I didn't realize it was like an aerobic workout for me to actually cook. All of a sudden, I get these CIA knives that shows up. So what happens right away? I'm I'm already bleeding. I'm like, I'll just get a teaspoon, scoop that right off the top. Chad won't notice. I'm cooking it anyway.
I want to know how often that actually does happen.
I know exactly.
Kitchens,
right? I'm baking it. We're safe.
That's right. No big deal.
So right away, I have nicks and cuts
So you realized how really bad you are at knives.
Oh my gosh! A good sharp knife is a scary thing, especially if you're prone to preoccupation and distraction, like ADD boy over here.
Yeah.
So in a very distracted, preoccupied moment, I was putting dishes into the dishwasher, and no, I'm sorry, I was taking the clean ones out, and I saw the knife was down, and then something shiny happened over to my right. So I looked away over there, probably was something on TV.
Yeah.
But I knew where the bowl was, so I was putting my hand to go reach the bowl, looked away, and then I felt this feeling I've never felt before.
This warm hug.
It was kind of warm and squishy. And it took 1 or 2 full beats for my brain to catch up. Something has gone deep into your hand. And I looked down.
You impaled yourself again?
And I put the knives straight up.
Okay, you can't do that.
And didn't put them straight down. I got distracted.
Is your hand even real then? Yeah. That's still your hand.
I know, it's still my hand. And so I come down and I mean, it's like a good half inch. And I got so lucky because look, it's right on the knuckle. I missed the nerves, everything.
Yeah.
But it was so perfectly sharp that I didn't actually feel it go in. It was just this weird squishy feeling. And as my head was turned, I was like, oh, that's not good. And I looked down and I just slide my hand back off of the knife.
I
look and I've got this like gaping like wound on my hand.
Okay, we're going to name this podcast Pucker Factor Zulu.
Yes.
Because everybody's going, oh, God.
It's awful.
That's terrible.
So I did like any nurse farm person. I got super glue out and super glued it closed.
Right.
It works great.
Perfect.
Yeah, it does.
I was great.
Nope,
I had to do
it.
It
was an actually sharp knife so that you didn't like
it doesn't your ragged edges.
Just put it right over the top and then that super glue started to kind of come off in the shower, so I took it off. It should have had stitches, so it was kind of gaping. And then there's this stuff at Tractor Supply that you use for animals. It's called New Skin.
You got it for people too.
Yeah.
I used it for me.
You can use it. Yeah,
I'm a mammal.
I used to have it for people, but I have New Skin.
I just said I love New Skin.
I love New Skin.
Yeah, it's awesome.
That might be the name of this episode. I'm not sure.
But and New Skin is the best thing ever because once it went on, every time
it burns at first.
But it's a good burn.
And it's like it's just like
it's like killing bacteria, it's healing stuff.
Yeah.
And it looks like new skin.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And so you just cover it up top. So every couple days when I'm in the shower, I peel off, dry it, and then I put another layer of new skin right on there. And so I have this beautiful little crescent scar. And if you remember for Survivor, I was the guy who got his hand peed on.
Yeah.
Because I put my hand on a whole like herd of urchins hanging out on a rock.
Yeah, he wanted to pick up a porcupine, the sea porcupines.
Yeah, I'm like the guy who would go camping, like, oh, that porcupine's so cute. Let me give it a hug.
That's it. No.
Yeah. No.
All right, so we're caught up then.
Yes.
Okay, oh my God. I've been following along, you guys. And if people aren't aware, I know most people are aware though that you have a few goats, and your goat rancher, Chad.
Yes.
Is amazing.
Yes.
Watching him because the whole herd, it's like 250 goats.
Yeah, right about. Give or take a few.
They follow him everywhere. Like the Pied Piper.
Yeah.
It's the neatest thing.
Yeah.
It really is. That's so cool.
It's really cool. And, his transition into being the goat whisperer took years.
Yeah.
And so what happens when we first got goats in 2008, that was kind of a John surprise, like 5 minutes before the first two goats showed up. It was like, don't be mad.
Guess what I bought?
Yeah. It's always, I'm in trouble because I always start off with, don't be mad. Then he's like waiting for my Lucy moment to like, okay, what's coming out of your mouth next? Like, what have you got us involved with, or what's coming to live with us? Like, what the heck's going on?
It wasn't even 2020 because right now everybody's been ordering so much shit, in 2020.
Yeah, don't be mad.
Somebody said the other day, I wouldn't be surprised if a llama showed up at my front door because I don't even know what's coming next.
Yeah.
I have no idea. And I literally have a whiteboard where I write down the stuff that I ordered so I know what's still coming so I don't have to search my email confirmation thing.
You're like, I think I ordered that.
I know sure. I ordered from them. Where is that? Why is that not here yet? Or I get something and it's not on my board.
Yes.
Ooh, forgot about that. Yeah.
So, if I probably could have figured out if Amazon could have delivered them, we probably found a way to do that back in 2008. Perfect. So we got our first two goats. And then, so for many years after that, they were kind of like my thing. And then I want to say probably about 5 years ago or so, we just had this kind of transition to the farm where we were getting the tiny houses and just kind of turning the farm into
Disneyland.
Just kind of invite the public to have a little, it's a 40-acre farm and as you can see what's happening, around, especially, West Omaha. I mean, everything is bought up now. All the land is 204th is about to come like the new Dodge Street. I mean,
crazy.
All the land has been bought. They're just building stuff, tearing stuff down. So as the city kind of starts encroaching, our little 40 acres is going to, be this little oasis of land.
Yeah. Anyway, speaking of which, there's a place on, I think it's 132nd, maybe 132nd and Pacific. Let's see, 132nd? 132nd and Pacific. I think it is. It might be 144th. Yeah. But there's a farm there, like on the southwest corner, that's surrounded by trees.
Right.
And it's still there. I don't know if anybody lives there or not. And I keep forgetting to look it up online because I want to find, I'm just curious why it's still there, how it's survived. Because I live near Boys Town. And so 144th and Dodge to me is both amazing and incredibly sad. Because I missed the huge old barn that was there on Boys Town where the kids kept their animals.
Yeah, the blue silo still hanging out there.
Oh my God. And there's one barn they still have out there. And I don't know what it must be used for something, but, and all around it, all the streets are put in, so many buildings are going up. My view has changed considerably, literally from my house. And it's both progress, but it's sad because that huge area was just wide open.
Yeah.
And now it's all going to be an amazing development. Yep. It's going to bring a lot of people to town and a lot of new jobs.
Sure.
But it is really sad when you see that. And so there was a farm also up on 132nd and Fort. Excuse me. And up in there, I think there's a gas station on the southeast side, but it was the northeast side. It was a huge farm that was there too. I hadn't been by there for a long time. It is gone.
Gone, yeah.
Yeah. It's just crazy. But the whole county is practically the city. Right? Because the city's pretty much annexed most of the county, I think. But everything is just growing so fast. And you think, how could that be? Omaha is just like an anomaly to me in so many ways. How fast it's grown and how it's continuing to grow.
Well, you always wonder, like, who's moving into these houses? And
crazy. And the neighborhood, like around Boys Town, they're moving a company, Applied Parkway, and I think that has something to do with the name of the company that's coming in, I believe. But anyway, there are people that are moving here from out of state with this company. And so the area has been saturated with flyers and posts on Nextdoor, people that are looking for homes. Because as Sasha can attest to, because she's been in the house market for a while, there's a certain price range, and it's not narrow, where good luck finding a house.
Right.
Because they get snatched up so fast.
Yeah, the inventory is so low. And then you can just imagine. I always feel like there could be a quirky like murder mystery based off of real estate agents in a market like ours where they're like super competitive and offing each other to get the inventory. Just a whole bunch of real estate agents just, disappearing and dropping dead.
Well, give me her list. Thank you. Take her list. I'll figure this out. Yeah, it's seriously because there's so many agents in this town.
Well, that's the way it's like, happening. So 204th and Q, all of that, it's all been bought up. And I mean, every week we go by, it's being carved up and and it's all mixed use and all of that. And I love that transition from when you'd hit 204th and Q and as I drive home, I go from the city and then I really disappear into the country. And now it's going to be like until I get to 245th, because otherwise it's all pretty much been developed.
South of Q is another thing too. When you're going south of Q, all those farms and ranches that were along those horse properties, a lot of them that are along there, and now they're in disrepair because obviously they've been sold to developers.
Right.
And so they're waiting to develop them. And I'm just like, oh, this is so sad. And there's so many houses that are gone along that drive that was once just open pasture. I can't believe the number of homes out there.
Oh, it's just crazy. I mean, it's just crazy, all the development.
Yeah.
So our farm, it kind of sits in a really, we've got a big bluff on the east side, so there's just not going to be any development. And then now with the Lost Rail golf course, that's going up like about a mile and a half from our house as the crow flies.
Nice.
We got this really cool little area. And so, this last year we finally, started doing outdoor farmers markets, socially distancing, with masks. Everybody's set up, far enough apart from each other. And once we get out of, COVID, we just want to do more things. We've got a third tiny house that we're working on. And, we put a greenhouse this year and I started doing a lot of canning.
I didn't know you did a greenhouse.
It's small. I mean, it's kind of like my starter one to kind of, but holy cow, just having a greenhouse.
I'm kidding.
What's that?
Did you buy it from Ward's? I'm just hearing the starter kit. It's like that house I lived in Hastings. It was a starter home from Sears.
Oh, there you go.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
And you ordered it from Sears. And it was kind of cool. But
I couldn't believe how, first of all, it's just a little 6-foot.
Yeah.
Greenhouse, and I started doing container gardening also. So where our dog kennels were, because we lost all 3 of our boxers in a very short period of time, and so where their area was, it was fenced, and the kennel, we took the dog house out. I put my greenhouse in there. It had a nice cement pad, and then I did a bunch of container gardening, and I've just been kind of playing around. Holy cow! Between starting early in the greenhouse and with containers, I ended up with peppers and tomatoes like 2 months ahead of when I would have gotten them. Then I got the stuff into the garden, which kind of dovetails. And then I got to go back to the greenhouse after it got cold.
Wow.
So I was just in my little greenhouse a couple days ago, and one of my little lettuce seeds I've been doing greens in there, must have fallen onto the ground. But the greenhouse is it's creating such a warm environment.
Yeah.
I walked in, there was a full-on head of lettuce in the crack of the cement that had grown inside the greenhouse.
That's the only thing that I can get to grow in my backyard is crap that's not supposed to be growing in the cracks of my patio.
Right.
Because I plant something and take care of it.
Right.
Dead.
Throw it in a crack in your driveway.
Yeah.
Boom. It's good.
I don't understand.
No, but it's been really a lot of fun. Just, and so I started doing a lot of canning. And we've been growing a lot of elderberry.
Was canning hard?
No, because I've been doing it for a long time.
You've been doing
just
it for a while.
off and on.
Because remember when you made the pear butter?
Yes.
For me, because I had a pear tree.
Yes, years ago.
Years ago.
Yeah.
And you made the pear butter, which was really that's like when you first started doing it.
That was probably my first set of canning that I had ever done when I did the pear butter. And I remember I had gotten a jar of it over to Pat, and I had dropped it off. And by the time I got home, he had called me and said, "Can I have a new jar?" We just got spoons out, and we just demolished it with no bread. We just ate it straight out of the jar. I'm like, "No, you've had your allotted pear butter. You get one every 2 years.
Oh, my God.
Otherwise, I will have none left."
Oh, right. Oh, my God. Okay, you did the elderberries.
Yeah, so we had some just natural elderberries that naturalized. And so we've been fermenting it and doing the elderberry. We don't go wine. It's just a fermented elderberry juice. You just do like a shot of it. But then I took some of that.
I'm calling it jail juice. I'm just going to say it sounds like that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just a little bit. Maybe it's a little moonshiny. Okay. I'm not sure.
That's okay.
But no, I've been doing that and then cooking that down, straining it, and then saving the juice. And then I have a peach preserve elderberry jam that I do that I use white peaches. So it has this really pretty kind of lavender, light purple color. And then my big thing I did this summer, which is, it's going to be a staple on the farm. It's Willow Valley Farm 7-pepper chili peach jam. So I take 7 peppers and you'll always be guaranteed there'll be 7 different types. So it could be habanero, jalapeno, poblano, shishito, bell pepper, longhorns. I probably grew 10 different kinds of peppers. So I take 7 and then do that whole thing. And then I get peaches. And especially when the Colorado peaches came in. Oh my gosh.
The hot and sweet is the key. Without a doubt.
That flew off but once we did that, I was like, that's my signature jam.
Right?
I love spicy jam.
There's
I should have brought some so we could have tasted it.
Right? I figured you'd bring us something.
Yeah.
But
do you have a spare bedroom in which I can live?
Yes.
Do you need someone to pick your peppers?
Right.
Yes. Yeah, the peppers were so good this year. I think because it was hot and dry. So the peppers did really, really good this year.
Have you made any salsa?
Yeah, I've done all of it.
Have you seen and I can't remember the brand right this minute, but there's a local guy who was at Hy-Vee one day, and this is like 2 years ago, and he was stocking the shelves with his own salsa, and he got he was given some shelf space,
right,
in the refrigerated area and in Hy-Vee, and was putting it out there, and it's a red and yellow container, cannot remember, but they have mango, pineapple, and then there's black bean. and then there's hot, and I can't remember the name of it. Hilarious
Is this the one out of Papillion that has the white label?
It's not the jars. These are in square plastic containers.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, that one I've tried those too.
It's really good. I love their corn salsa.
Pineapple salsa is like I mean, seriously.
I did a bunch of peach salsas.
But I love that would be awesome. The mango was really good that this guy was making. What was
so he almost did it like pico de gallo kind of thing with
pico.
Like super fresh.
It was more of
or
a pico.
chunky.
Mm-hmm. And I love that really good pico, especially Fernando's.
Yes,
has the pico, and it's like $100 for a pint of it, and I don't care. I think it's $7 a pound or $7 something. I mean, I don't care. Yeah. It's just I'll spoon it and eat it. I mean, I love that hot, and it's just so fresh and so good. But yeah, the spicy, hot, I should say spicy, sweet. And you're right with the jams in particular.
It's so good.
There are some great spreads.
I'll see how much of my 7-pepper chili jam I have left.
Yes,
see if I can if I can spare one.
So what else is chili? Have you ventured into the chili realm? Like, are you going to start competing at chili contests?
No. So the other thing that I kind of played around with, and then because COVID got so hot and heavy in November, we were going to do a final last one, but so Leo, who owns Pasta Amore, he does these great videos on Facebook, and he's really generous with like what he's making, and he kind of walks you through it. Doesn't give you, specific, the amount of the ingredients. He just basically says, here's everything I'm working with, and he just does his thing.
I love when people do that, and it's kind of, for no matter what your process is, to show everybody exactly how to do it, because some people want to try to do it themselves. Sure. And then once they do, they realize it's much simpler to come buy it from you. Because
it's totally true.
Right?
Unless you're like me,
and you like
cooking for me is a place of solace.
Yeah.
I've been doing it since I was so little. My mom was one of the original working mothers way back in the day. By the time I was like 8 or 9 years old, I remember my very first thing I ever made was out of the Betty Crocker cookbook, the red and white.
I still have one of those.
Yep, and
trust me, I don't use it
was the
very
coffee cake.
Yes.
My very first thing I ever made on my own was the coffee cake. And every once in a while, I'll go back as like an homage to my childhood to go make the coffee. Now, of course, I like take that and then like shush it up and do all kinds of stuff. But my very first thing I ever made was the coffee cake. And that was when I got my first kind of hit on cooking, because my mom, we have this joke that my mom sat me down when I was 5 and said, honey, I'm not one of those cookie baking mothers. And if you want cookies, you're going to have to learn to bake them yourself.
Bake them yourself. That's
and
it.
So by time, I remember at one point I had like a little step stool, because I was always short, and so in order to reach the counter, I had like a little step stool that I would step on and do stuff. And so by the time I was like 10 or 11, I was venturing. By the time I was 12, I was making dinner. Awesome. I was like cooking.
Right.
And so now, being a certain age, it's so second nature. Yeah. And it's, when you just play and you try and fail, you learn kind of from your mistakes. But I don't have any foodisms. I say I'm a human garbage pail, so I will try everything. There's a few things I just don't care for, but for the most part, But I've been working with all kinds of spices and herbs, and you just kind of naturally.
That's the thing that I've learned more about than anything is seaning.
Seasoning, it is, and just like and then understanding more of this. Everything. Now I'm more into like the science of some of the food and. And different things like that. So now when I go in, I don't think about anything. I don't think about work. I don't think about pressure. I don't think about anything. And Chad is the perfect muse, because he enjoys food just as much as I do, and he'll give a lot of great feedback. And I rarely have repeats. Most everything is something new,
only?
But we have a few go-tos that. Like my naked pasta is something in which we just tweaked it. Now it's called bikini pasta. And bikini pasta is going to give naked pasta a run for its money. Usually it's the other way around.
Care to elaborate on that at all?
Yeah, you know what? And I'm trying to figure out how to use my Instagram to do some like farm like type stuff, because I love you know me, I love to share. I love to teach. I love to give people experience, the John Carroll experience, you know?
Also known as oversharing.
Yes. You know, look, when you're an ADD Gemini, I mean, you know, it's like just.
Well, see, we could probably help you with that too. Because we're doing more of that ourselves here, and maybe we can help you out with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and one of my neighbor friends who's she's really kind of exploring the kitchen. She's got a really wonderful kitchen, but she's kind of exploring like how to do all those things. And so I've like popped up. So she has a big enough kitchen. We can be on opposite ends of the counter. And so I've helped her with, a couple of different things. And she gave this line, and I think you could totally appreciate it, so I had come home, and as I was driving home, I was like, it was hitting the fall, and I was like, man, I'm just craving pumpkin pie. So, I mean, before I'd even got out of my work clothes, I got home, and within 15 minutes, a homemade pumpkin pie is in the oven. I snap a picture of it, and between texts with her, I sent a picture, and she's just like, you were just like talking to me. You have a homemade pumpkin pie in your oven.
Yeah. And
she goes, time just works different for John. And I'm like, it's true though. Because to me, time, that's why I'm always late and why I've always had trouble.
You're always late in other people's worlds.
Yes.
It's so funny. We were just talking this morning with Rihanna about how people are on different timelines.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And she's in the Reiki, and she'll say too, she's woo woo. And that's okay. Some things more woo woo than others.
Right.
But she says people are on different timelines.
Yeah.
And it just works different for some people. You're able to get more stuff done, this person on their timeline, than this person could ever get done on their timeline.
And I realized when she said that, that was like my own personal epiphany, because all of a sudden I saw, it's weird, like it's a little woo-woo, but all of a sudden I clicked, and I went, I realized for me, and why I do struggle sometimes with why I'm so spontaneous and adaptable is my timeline is one continuum. I don't think of like a day or a week. It's like one long string of
stuff,
experiences and doing. And I don't think about like, I have to do this today or this week.
It's not segmented.
I don't,
like other people.
I don't compartmentalize it. It's like, if I wake up and if I can think it and I can do it and I can squeeze it in, I will. And
that's completely different than most people. And for some people, they'd probably be wise to listen, because that's probably why they struggle with a calendar. You know, I mean, it's you realize I'm constantly fighting Mother Nature, and it's because you feel like you have to think like everybody else.
Well, and then the other epiphany that I've had also is, from the time I was in my 20s, I've been dealing with death and dying in a very, very significant way, one way or another. In my 20s, I moved out to LA in 1990, and right away I was in LA, and 3 days later, I was working at the second largest HIV clinic, and I spent, really the balance of the rest of from 90 to 97 in one way or another dealing with HIV and AIDS. So, we had our own epidemic, our own pandemic, if you will.
You were in the bubble. You were in the bubble. I mean, you were in.
I mean, we were on the front lines, and here I was, I was working in a clinic and, dealing with people my own age, and who we lost so many of them. I just recently posted a picture. I had come across a photo.
Saw that.
And it was three of us. I'm in the middle. And it was just so startling because what we're dealing with right now with this particular pandemic. And it just brought me back. And here I was in this couch. And the person to my left and my right, just a few short months, both of them were gone. And when you looked at that photo, you never would have thought that they had such a expiration date, and here I am now 55. And I looked at that picture of, a 24, 25-year-old me. But in one way or another, throughout my entire life, I have been, whether it was on HIV, AIDS, oncology, and then my own personal family, starting in 12 with my dad, and then my mom's diagnosis, my sister's diagnosis, finding out I have the gene mutation that also increases that risk. What I have found now is that as I look forward in time and realize I have less in front of me than I do behind me, that urgency to create and to do more is even ramped up more than it's ever been. So all of a sudden I wanted to paint, and all of a sudden I'm like, holy crap. Like there's a painter inside this body, and I want to try this and I want to try that. And, and so I guess the lesson out of all of that is, when tragedy hits you and all of that, yes, you have to take that time to grieve, and I'm still grieving my sister.
Oh,
you know, I mean, this summer was a huge grieving summer for me when it finally came home to roost. And, you know, if you listen to Fleetwood Mac's or Stevie Nicks' Gypsy, that's my sister and me. Yeah. I mean, just that, all those lines. And she came to visit me this summer, and I was listening to that song, and I heard those words for the first time. I've listened to that song so many times I can't begin to tell you. And then all of a sudden, it just hit me.
That's I've had that happen with songs. All of a sudden, you hear it.
Oh, yeah.
Wait a minute, that's not how I thought that meant. Now I see what it means. Yeah. It just is like, well, and that's kind of like mind blowing when that happens, because it's something you're so familiar with. Yeah. And you see it completely differently.
And I for hours, I just let it rip because I've been holding it on. And, you know, when you have the kind of background I have where I have a lot of medical knowledge, you know, I call it the gift, you know, the curse of knowledge, but really it is a gift because you can be a conduit and you can be there, you know, an auxiliary for other people. And so what I have found at this stage in my life, when people are going through major medical things, I can be that safety net for them. I've had plenty of people who have very quietly or even directly have reached out and just said, hey, can you go to this doctor's appointment with me? Or, you know, or I have volunteered to go do those things. Well, that's come from a lifetime of being, you know, around all of that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it doesn't leave you a big space for your own grief because you have to be there for other people. But you're also a vessel of having to do that. And so when Dave, my neighbor, you know, when all that went down, I went through many steps with him. I've done it recently with somebody else who's just gotten a really, really tough, you know, diagnosis.
Right.
But that song opened up this door for me to just let it rip. Yeah. And it felt so good in the sense of I didn't realize how much I was holding on and how much I missed her. And like how, you know, how her and I went through things as children that my youngest sister didn't just because of age, and some really, really tough stuff. And so we're not quite Irish twins, but we're pretty close. And so because of, we were always supporting each other and pushing each other because of tough circumstances and making choices about not wanting to, you know, have generational issues keep going. And so we were always kind of partners in that in our lifetime. And we had tough times because we're both Irish and, you know, both.
Because you are that close.
We are that close. And we could love hard and fight hard, but like in a second be like, hey, you know, and my youngest sister, you know, I didn't have that same connection with. I have a different one with her, but not quite the same. And so for us, you know, her, you know, being gone, I'd never really had thought about what that would be like to lose a sibling until, you know, she got sick, you know, and then being there with her when she got the stage 4 diagnosis and, you know, driving down to Kansas City, you know, to meet with the oncologist and do all of those things. And the whole time understanding what the medicine meant and also, but still trying to open doors of hope, you know, along the way. And being a few steps ahead of where this was going, it was really, really hard. Yeah. So that song, like when it opened that door and I felt her around me, like I felt her. Like I don't care what anybody says, whether you want to call it the universe or God or whatever it was. All of a sudden there was a temperature change. It was a feeling, and I was planting. I was just doing some landscaping, and and I was doing landscaping when I knew she was down to her last week, and I called my brother-in-law to say, I've had a feeling, a message, whatever. I think she's got about a week, and she had 8 days from that phone call, and that same kind of feeling, except for it came around, and it was just kind of a.
Was it reaffirming? Was it?
It, you know, it told me that whatever is on the other side, it's an energy. I mean, I know that for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I just felt whatever that energy was, like all of a sudden when it was there, I had felt it. And then all of a sudden I heard the lyrics and I was hearing these words. And then I played the song for the rest of the afternoon, just over and over and over again. And just childhood, like all these different years. I lived in that entire afternoon with my sister at different good, bad, indifferent. And I just spent, and I remember I came around the corner and Chad said, I have never seen you look so sad. And it was because I told him, I said, I was sad and joyful, but I was sad because I accepted it.
Yeah.
Like there was always this piece of maybe it's not true, like that denial piece. And it was the acceptance and then just the release of understanding that I'll never see her again in this form. Like all moments that we've had together are over, and that I do have memory. And that's one of the lines in there is she's just a memory.
Yeah.
And lightning strikes once, maybe twice, and it just, the lines, play that song and just think about, somebody that you love or somebody that you've lost, and you're going to see, it's like Sarah, that's the other song that can kind of evoke those kinds of emotions.
Absolutely.
But it was really just a beautiful goodbye. But it took a year, for it to happen.
I think a lot of people avoid that just because you don't want to do that because it's so final. It's like, well, that means I gave up. That's, it's like, but then you realize once you do it, that it's the greatest gift you can give yourself. Well, because now you can accept the other side.
It's the gift of tears because, I'm one of those people that I don't dwell on the past. I want to grow. Like if I'm too busy living in the past, I'm missing what's right in front of me. But I also am careful not to futurize and try not to tap into magical thinking and those kinds of things and really try to be as present as I can. But sometimes I can be hard on people even around me because there are times when you do have to pause on the negative and deal with it. And mine is like, I look at it real quick, I deal with it. I'm like, what am I supposed to learn here? Yeah. And then I want to move on because I don't want to be sucked into that dark space and I don't want to stay there. You know what I mean? And so my thing is, okay, let's figure it out and let's keep moving. But sometimes you're supposed to stay there.
It would be kind of interesting to have him on a podcast with Rihanna.
Yeah,
because she addresses a lot of this stuff, talking about what you were assigned to,
right,
and what you accepted for your life, and what you need to learn, and what you need to teach others.
Yeah,
and we were just talking about helicopter parents yesterday, and that they step in all the time to try to make things good for their kids. Good intention,
right?
It's like, but you're not letting your kids grow. You're not letting them experience.
Right. Experience.
Yeah.
And I think that's
people who try to save other people all the time. They're always stepping in, trying to scoop them up and save the day. And it's like, you just ruined the reason they're going through that process. Right. They need to go through that. And in some ways that sounds insane, but it also makes total sense. Right. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I didn't expect to get this deep.
I know. I'm like, but
goodness sakes. I don't know. We need something light to end this with. What's something light and funny? I went to Costco for the very first time ever about a week ago. I'd never been before. And I bought my membership on just like impulsively online, and went. And my biggest takeaway at Shopko was how big the damn carts are.
Shopko.
Costco. God,
Shopko's closed.
It doesn't even list talk about throwback. I was like Costco. Shopko was like what 10 years ago.
They did sell their carts. Did you bring one home?
Right. And then you just jump right down to Pomida.
I did.
And then you went to Kmart.
There was a great Pomida. Is there still a Pomida? Do they still exist?
In small,
maybe Plattsmouth.
Like in Plattsmouth has
Plattsmouth has a Pomida.
Paul Michael David.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
How about Woolworth? Don't you remember Venture?
Piggly Wiggly.
Venture was like what Target, I think Venture was like the future Target.
Did not know about Venture.
Yeah, Venture was, I know they had one in Kansas City, but for some reason I thought they had one in Omaha. But they had like a black and white diagonal logo. I just remember that. And it was called Venture.
Do not remember that.
Yeah.
But we didn't come to Omaha very often when I was a kid. It was kind of a big deal.
So the first time I ever shoplifted is when I went to Venture when I was a kid.
What'd you get?
This is how I am like the most ridiculous shoplifter ever. I mean, this story, it's not like I have all.
Yeah.
I shoplifted two things when I was a kid. The first thing I shoplifted, so I shoplifted twice, got caught once. So the thing I shoplifted that I got away with is I had loved animals, so I had all kinds of animals and stuff. So I needed more fish for my fish tank. So you know how they get the big plastic bag and they stick the fish in the water and then they put the tube in there and they blow it all up and tie the rubber bands around?
Yeah.
And you got to imagine me. I'm probably in 4th, 5th grade. I must have walked to the venture. I think it was in 5th grade. I think this was in Kansas City. I think the venture might have been a Kansas City thing. And so I don't know why. I probably didn't have the money. I don't know why. I was maybe just supposed to shoplift once in your life. The danger of it all. I was an adrenaline junkie. Maybe that was it.
That's probably
anyway,
what it was.
So little old 60-pound me takes probably 5 pounds of fish and water and somehow sticks it under my shirt.
That's the worst thing to shoplift.
I shoplifted a bag of fish out of Venture. And the second thing I shoplifted.
Did your parents ever say, "Where'd you get these fish?"
No, I mean I had so many animals; they didn't know where anything was coming from. I'd find them, and they were afraid to go in my room. I had everything in there. Remember, I converted my closet into a chicken coop when I was 13. I mean, they were just they were scared to death to go in that room. So I could have had a monkey in there; they never would have known. And so the second thing I ever shoplifted was to host this fruit pie and got caught. And it was in my pants. And they pulled me into this little security room. And I had to pull this crumpled up fruit pie out of my underwear because I'd shoved it down into the front and it was destroyed. It was mangled inside the wrapper. I had to pull it out of my pants and stick it on the counter. And I was banned from going. I can't even tell you what store it was. And I was banned from ever shopping there again. Otherwise, they would call the police. And because I stole, and back then I think it was a 39-cent fruit pie.
Right. Yeah. Oh my God. And your parents?
No, but they never knew about either one.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, I dodged the bullet twice.
Because on so many levels, that's so wrong that they took you in a room and had you take the pie out of your pants.
I took the pie out of my pants.
And didn't call your parents.
Nope.
That's crazy.
Yeah, but just mortified,
Yeah. Oh, I bet.
First of all, it was what's that song? Didn't do it or
yeah.
No, it wasn't me.
Wasn't me.
Wasn't me. I pulled the old. It wasn't me.
Not my pants. As in Lindsay Lohan.
Yeah,
not my pants.
It comes up and security is you stole that fruit pie. No, I didn't. Wasn't me. I'm like, yes, we saw you on camera. You stuck it down the front of your pants. And then basically is looking at my crotch saying, there's a fruit pie in there. I'm like, you betcha there is.
You have no idea.
I have no idea.
On that note, that sounds like a good place to end the podcast. Okay, so you got to come back again soon.
Yes.
Okay, and we got to get your podcast up and going.
Yes, for sure.
Okay.
I will.
All right, so there you go. So another day, no Pat.
Yes, no Pat.
And we got one more day to make it.
Yeah.
Right this week. And going to have a really special guest on for the next one. And you're going to enjoy it. So
awesome.
Thanks, guys. It's Pat and JT.
Pat and JT Podcast, a Hurrdat Media Production.